Hello, welcome to Cable's Conquests. I'm your host, Archie Cable, and we're here to talk about Marvel Crisis Protocol.
The name's Cable. Remember it.
Hello, welcome back to Cable's Conquests, and welcome to part 2 of our coverage of the Mutant Weekender. In today's episode, we'll be covering day 2, so check out the last episode, episode 5 it was, for part 1. And I'm once again joined by Curtis. How are you doing, Curtis?
Hi, yeah, I'm great, Archie. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Excited to wrap this one up.
Yeah,
So just to kind of summarize what happened in the last episode. So spoilers if you haven't listened to it, cut back, stop listening now, go back, listen to episode 5, and then come back and listen to this episode 6. So day 1 was this group stage, right? So you were the tournament organizer. So do you want to tell us again, just briefly summarize what this was about?
absolutely. So day one, we had 8 groups with 6 people in each. They all had 4 games. They got to play hopefully all but one of the opponents, but sometimes because of Swiss, they might have faced the same person twice. And then the winners of each of those groups will have gone into the Mutant Weekender Cup. Those who finished second and third will have gone into the Mutant Weekender Plate. And then those who finished fourth, fifth, and sixth will have gone into the Mutant Weekender Shield. And Archie, where did you place on day one?
So unfortunately, I ended up going 1-3 on day 1, and so I finished 4th in the group. So I was the best of the losers.
Yeah, I mean that's not the worst place to be. Maybe you're one of the favourites going into the Shield the next day as one of, and you had some tough games on day one. Just sort of going through them in the last episode to having lost 2 games and then go against the person who ended up topping the group in that final game was a rough matchup. But I think you're well placed.
Yes. So I'm going into the Shield. So just to briefly run through my roster again, just to remind the listeners, we go through it in more detail and we discuss it in the previous episode. We won't do that discussion, but my roster is a defender's roster, a defender/Web Warriors roster, I should say, composing of the Immortal Hulk, Amazing Spider-Man, Daredevil, Wolverine, Elektra, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Wong, Ghost Spider, and Spider-Man Miles Morales. My team tactics cards are Patch Up, Heroes for Hire, One Below All, No Matter the Cost, Exceptional Healing, Mission Objective, Fallback, All Webbed Up, Spider Tracker, and Sacrifice. And my crises were Gamma Wave, Mayor Fisk, and Deadly Meteors for the Secures, and Research Station, Montesi Formula, and Deadly Legacy Virus.
But essentially, to remind the listener, your roster's all about getting Immortal Hulk on the table, your beautifully painted up Immortal Hulk, and then only lean into the Web Warriors if the crisis dictates.
Yes, exactly. So my goal is to have a punchy roster. And day 1, that didn't go so well. As I said, I was 1-3, and there was a lot of control in there that really neutered Immortal Hulk. So I'm going into day 2, hoping to have a bit more of a scrap and really get Immortal Hulk rolling some dice.
I'm hoping the Shield, Mutant Weekender Shield, is Fight Club. I'm hoping it's all those rosters, all those players that brought toys that they wanted to put on the table and smash up some of their opponents. Sadly, they might have lost out to some of these more control, objective focused teams, but now you've just got an absolute mash of great models, interesting models, maybe models we don't see so much. Fingers crossed you'll come across some of those in your games.
Yes, and hoping not to see too much Bill or Black Cat. That seems to be the theme of day 1.
Yeah, I think that echoed around the room in the Mutant Weekender Shield for sure.
Yeah. So, without further ado, shall we get on to talking about some of the games?
We're not retreating. It's victory or death.
So Archie, you've turned up on day 2, a little bit hungover, I imagine, a little bit, sore and feeling sorry for yourself after a couple of losses on day 1. But the slate is wiped clean, and who you're facing in round 1 in the Mutant Weekender Shield.
Yeah, I turn up today. We're feeling a little dusty, I'm not going to lie,
Yeah.
after quite a heavy evening the night before. And I'm playing against Mike. So Mike Field May, he's a local player. I've played him a couple of times. He's famous for playing Dormammu a lot, named Dormamike, nicknamed Dormamike in the community.
He does. He tries to make him work at any opportunity, doesn't he?
Yep. However, today he's not playing Dormammu, he's playing Midnight Suns.
Oh, so does that mean we might have a little bit of an Immortal Hulk off?
Indeed, so I see Immortal Hulk across the table, and I hear big things about Immortal Hulk in Midnight Suns. So we roll priority. I won priority. We draw Senators and Gamma. Mike chooses the threat value and he goes at 15. And I am buzzing because I can take my
Oh, amazing.
nice core Immortal Hulk, Daredevil, and Wolverine.
Oh, excellent.
And Mike across the table goes with Blade, Midnight Suns,
Of course.
Immortal Hulk, so we get that mirror,
Amazing.
and Black Dwarf.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay. So I've not seen Black Dwarf a whole bunch on the table. I don't imagine you have either,
No,
but
this was the first time I'd played against him. He's interesting because he's a size 4 model, which is great for Immortal Hulk, my Immortal Hulk, to throw him about and daze people. However,
yeah.
he can also throw size 4 models.
So he can also throw Immortal Hulk about.
So it's a pretty mirror match. 3v3, Immortal Hulk v Immortal Hulk. So I'm really buzzing for this because Mike and I talked before the game. We're in the Shield, and we both say if this ends on points, we'll be disappointed. Because there's not that many characters on the table to hold senators, and there's not that many points worth for the Gamma. So,
Right. I really rate the fact that there are 6 extracts on the table and you've still both thought, "Oh yeah, 3 models, that'll do."
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we set up, kind of everyone's pretty bunched up. We've got Immortal Hulk lining up against each other. Round one, Daredevil grabs a senator. He then gets attacked by Blade, but not much happens. So it's kind of our two kind of leaders just dancing around.
Yeah, because Blade attacks of his builder and his gainer, they are physical, right? So Daredevil doesn't mind.
No, his builder, which is ranged to his Mystic.
Ah, right, okay, so actually that's a bit dicey for
Yeah,
Daredevil.
but his range 4, which is what he did, is a 4
Ah,
dice
right, okay.
physical. So I wasn't too bothered. Then Mike's Immortal Hulk and Black Dwarf walk up to the middle. So they're stood in the middle. My Wolverine kind of sits back on my back Gamma, basically saving his power so that he can gear up and do his charge next turn. And Daredevil survives his attacks with Immortal Hulk and Black Dwarf. And my Immortal Hulk walks up, punches Black Dwarf, gets that sweet, sweet wild which I was looking for,
Excellent.
and so gets to lob Black Dwarf off the objective and into Blade.
Oh, that's a bit of a double whammy there.
Yeah, so Blade takes a healthy chunk of damage early on. It's 5 damage coming in. He blocks a couple of it, so he's maybe taken 2 to 3 damage, which for a first go with Immortal Hulk, that's what I wanted to see in this Hulk off.
Yeah. And I don't know if Mike was running brace, but either it might be too soon to play it, knowing that there's still so many more throws on the
Yeah,
table, or actually like just stopping one of these throws just isn't working hard when there are so many more in the tank.
yeah, he was running brace, but he didn't use it for this because Blade was going to survive no matter what.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense.
And so at the end of round 1, it's 3-all. But I'm feeling pretty good because my Immortal Hulk's done a bit more damage.
Yeah. Okay.
Daredevil was rolling his blanks when he was getting
Oh,
attacked, which
good
is
lad.
what you want.
Good lad.
So his Black Dwarf then throws my Immortal Hulk into Wolverine. So Wolverine gets some damage put into him by my own model, but not a huge amount. I think I actually block quite well.
And again, I imagine Wolverine's healthy at this point, so you can't take him out.
Yeah.
And then fingers crossed, if then Wolverine gets to go, he just heals it right back
Well,
up.
that's the thing. And I don't mind him taking some damage because then he gets more power to do all his stuff because that's what he really wants is his power.
Yeah.
And again, I'm then sitting back with those characters. And again, he's throwing quite a lot of dice into Daredevil with Blade. And actually, his Immortal Hulk kind of is quite cagey. So it's his Black Dwarf that sits on that middle Gamma. And his Immortal Hulk actually sits quite far back. I think he's nervous that my Immortal Hulk can come in and just do some real damage to his Immortal Hulk, pinball people around. And he's hoping that Black Dwarf can do that job. But in the end, Wolverine is the one that charges in. He dazes Black Dwarf,
Nice.
which is pretty huge.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'd done a little bit of damage to him the previous turn with Immortal Hulk, but actually Wolverine is the one that manages to take him out. And this is great because he's such a tank, and I was a bit worried about his too dangerous to ignore stuff. But then he gets killed by Blade. So Blade did his mystic attacks into Wolverine, and Wolverine goes down. So that was pretty brutal. But then Blade actually gets attacked by Daredevil with just Daredevil's range 4, and Blade takes 5 damage total. So he's got 1 health left, and I pull him off the point and pull him out of the gamma range.
Oh, nice. So it's not affecting the turning because he'll take that damage in the cleanup. Nice.
Yeah. And then Immortal Hulk, basically, because he's been thrown, we've got to remember Immortal Hulk's been thrown, so he's actually quite far back. So my Immortal Hulk walks up, hops up into the middle, and basically chucks his Immortal Hulk away. So it means his Immortal Hulk is slightly in no man's land, and mine's now back in the center. So it's a very like ding dong affair where
Yeah,
lots of attacks going in.
you're just trading blows. So who gets to activate last? Does his Immortal Hulk get to then go last to then, sort of claim the flag?
No, it's my Immortal Hulk that goes last. So I think maybe I've got priority the wrong way around. Maybe it was his priority, and he might have gone with his extracts to start. Actually, that might have been what happened because my secures were basically the same as his.
So he was like, yeah, I'd rather have my extracts.
Yeah,
I've got a plan there.
so that basically meant that I was always getting last activation, but conversely, he was getting first activation. So it was, can he do enough damage to my guys with first activation, or can he control my Immortal Hulk well enough in first activation?
But that's harder to do, right, in first activation, given Immortal Hulk health pool. And if Daredevil just doesn't seem to want to go down because he's rolling his blanks, imagine there's a lot of risk on that first play. Whereas for you, there's no risk. You move them off the point, they can't get back on.
Yeah, and Immortal Hulk, unlike the last game that we talked about on day one, Immortal Hulk was rolling his wilds. So even though he was in this turn too, he was only getting 1 attack off because he had to walk back onto the point after being thrown away. He was still getting his wilds, which allowed me to like move people around, control people well. However, at the end of that round, it's still 5-all. So we've not scored that many points.
So you are literally just trading blows. Wolverine gets dazed, or Blade gets dazed, or Black Dwarf gets dazed, and people being thrown all around.
Exactly. And I'm actually trying so for example, with Daredevil, rather than sitting on the back point, I'm basically trying to put him in a position where he can influence the game without having stuff being thrown into him.
Right, okay.
But it's 5-all at the end of round 2. Round 3 kicks off with Black Dwarf going. And Black Dwarf actually goes into Wolverine here, and he does chunk of damage to Wolverine. Wolverine takes 4 damage. Remember, he's been dazed.
Gosh, they've only got 6 health on this side.
And then I think Mike makes a little bit of a misplay because he throws Wolverine away, and he throws Wolverine out of dodge for me to get in. But I've got a load of power, so I can just run back in, and it means that he can't then attack Wolverine with anyone else.
Right, so Wolverine's safe until he wants to go.
So I save him and go with Daredevil, who does some stuff, but then he gets dazed. So actually, even though Wolverine's safe, Daredevil doesn't offer a huge amount anyway.
Oh, certainly not. Okay.
And Daredevil finally goes down. I mean, he's taken some hits, so I'm happy with what he's done.
Sure.
So Wolverine then comes swinging in. He's taken 4 damage, so he gets that extra dice. He has his charge online, but he fluffs.
Oh no. Even with all those extra dice.
Yeah, he fails to KO Black Dwarf. I don't think it was a huge fluff. Well, yes, he fails to do enough damage to Black Dwarf. I think Black Dwarf, to be fair, has got 8 damage on his injured side.
Oh really? Yeah, and he's got damage reduction, right?
And he's got damage reduction, so it's quite a chunk. I'm a bit disappointed with Wolverine there. I was backing Wolverine to do it, especially with the leadership rerolls. And my Immortal Hulk gets thrown away by his Immortal Hulk. So my Immortal Hulk basically ends up having to do some walking again. So it's a similar story to the last one, but at least at the last game, but at least this time he's not staggered. So he's still able to do a little bit, and he's not having to spend all his power.
Is he holding a senator though? So he only wants to move once because he wants to attack. So I suppose that doesn't make much of a difference.
Yeah. I think he's holding a senator, but he can walk and hop back in.
Yeah.
And also, I have the 1 below all card, so for 1 turn, I can hop back in twice.
You can hop back in twice and then double attack. It's decent.
Exactly, and I think I did this round 2, which is why I had a more successful round 2. But yeah, round 3, I don't really do anything with Immortal Hulk. So the end of the round, it's 8-7. So I'm up now
Nice. Okay.
because I've managed to just do enough damage or just control people well enough to keep them off points. And again, he's been quite cagey with his Immortal Hulk. So his Immortal Hulk kind of threw mine and then just sat back.
Right. Okay.
So round 4 kicks off and Daredevil wakes up. We know what happens when Daredevil wakes up. I have priority because I didn't daze any characters.
Yeah, I know what's coming here.
Daredevil walks into the middle, big area attack, gets all 3 of his characters.
Surely Black Dwarf can't survive this after the beating he just took from Wolverine.
So Daredevil does his big area attack. Everyone survives.
What?
Yeah. So Black Dwarf survives on 1 health.
Who did you go into first? With your rerolls, who were you desperate to take out?
So it was Black Dwarf I went into first for 2 reasons. The first was I wanted to kill him. I wanted to just take a model off the board. The second was the bodyguard
Right.
because he can be too dangerous to ignore. But with the Daredevil spenders, even if I fail to kill, I then get to push him away. So I could push him out of that range. So then I could attack both of them. And actually, I think the dice went well on Immortal Hulk. So I did a decent chip of damage on Immortal Hulk. But he's got so much health.
Were you not tempted to bait the attack and bait out the too dangerous to ignore to potentially then get 2 attacks into Black Dwarf?
So the issue with that is I push him away.
Ah, this
And the
is
way that the terrain was set up, there was no way I could stop him from getting out of range 2, and I have to push him away. It's
right.
not a may, it's a must.
Yeah, and if there's no way of keeping him within range 2, that's totally fair.
If Daredevil's area attack pops off and takes out both Black Dwarf and Blade, that's probably curtains, because that's 2 of his characters off the board, and I still have 3. And then his Immortal Hulk goes, hops in, and KOs Wolverine. And I made a really rookie error here. I forgot to patch up Wolverine. I think Wolverine had taken like 4 or 5 damage at this stage.
Yep. Then did you still have exceptional healing online, or had that already been burnt?
No, I think I still had it online, but because I only had like 2 health left, he did 1 damage and a throw.
Ah, okay, so it's irrelevant.
Because that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, he can tank one of these attacks, but obviously Immortal Hulk can do a lot. And he's quite good at getting through those exceptional healing characters. However, he crucially spends all his power to do this. Immortal Hulk has to spend all his power to KO Wolverine. Daredevil then gets attacked, I think, by Blade, and he survives, but is out of gamma range. So he survives on 1.
Oh,
I know that he's going to die in the cleanup phase.
yeah.
So I'm staring down the barrel of 2 models KO'd, and he's got Black Dwarf, Immortal Hulk, and Blade all left. So I need a big Immortal Hulk turn to finish this round, and boy do I get one. So my Immortal Hulk goes into Blade, KOs him off 1 attack. I think, including the throw, I KO him. His Immortal Hulk, with no power, I now have enough power with my Immortal Hulk to do my Gamma Burst.
Oh, and they don't gain power from that, do they?
And I have about 5 damage to get through, and Immortal Hulk gets him. And so his Immortal Hulk gets KO'd without coming back because he has no power. He used all his power, and I was very careful not to do anything which gave him any power because I just needed him gone. Because even if he'd been on 1 health, I think he could have been problematic.
Yeah, if you give, I mean, you might not have given away priority, but yeah, I get the caginess there.
Yeah, that's the end of round 4. I'm 10-9 up, but we're currently, it's my Immortal Hulk versus his Black Dwarf.
Black Dwarf on 1.
Yeah, my Immortal Hulk is pretty healthy, and his Immortal Hulk and his Black Dwarf has got 1 health left. So that Immortal Hulk turn was absolutely huge. If I'd failed to KO his Immortal Hulk, I think I would have then been in trouble because we're going into round 5 now. So he needed 2 turns basically to last and keep in the game, and with more models, that's pretty good. So round 5 actually kicks off, and Black Dwarf gets to go first. Staggers and throws Hulk because he has a spender. So his spender on a wild staggers. So basically, Black Dwarf staggers, throws Immortal Hulk, and then walks back.
To try and get out of threat range, try and make it as difficult as possible for you.
I think as well he has a Senator at this stage. So Mike's best chance is to just try and finish the game by round 6 without getting KO'd. And this was really good because Immortal Hulk, he had enough power to hop back, but he had to like double walk to get in range. So he hopped, double walked to get in range.
And then, of course, can't do anything.
And then, of course, can't do anything.
Well, he's staggered as well, right?
Oh, sorry, it wasn't double walk. Yeah, he's staggered, so he hops and walks. But fortunately, Black Dwarf didn't have enough power to do that again. So Black Dwarf basically has to move away as far as he can onto his back objective. Immortal Hulk basically has one attack. This is round 6 we're talking now. Immortal Hulk walks up, does his Gamma Burst. Brace is still online here, so I needed to just do that 1 damage, but off 10 dice, he manages it.
Yeah.
And the game ends 11 all, but I win because I KO'd all of his characters.
That is nuts. Yeah, because you started to collect a bit of a points lead, and because your attrition was going so well, I sort of had in the back of my head, "Oh, you probably maintained that points lead." But it sounds like in that last turn, he was able to sort of get one back up on you, so you needed to KO him because at that stage, with one model each, both of you can collect 2 points a turn, and then it just goes to 16 all, and then it's a draw.
Exactly. Mike was playing for a draw at this stage, and because Immortal Hulk didn't have a senator on him, and where all the senators were, because so many people have been KO'd in random places, and also the amount of power that I needed on Immortal Hulk, I couldn't then pick one up. So yeah, so I went into round 5. At the start of round 5, I was 10-9 up, and Black Dwarf then staggers and throws him, so he's able to score 2 VPs. So basically, at that stage, Mike is playing for the draw, and he very nearly gets it. Basically, it did come down to dice. I mean, it's good dice. It's 10 dice.
Yeah, yeah.
But he had the brace online, so the auto throw wasn't going to do that pip of damage. But fortunately, this was a game where my Immortal Hulk really came through for me.
Oh, I'm so glad that you finally got what you were after. So what a great start to day one, and a big win for you. I imagine Mike was a great opponent. It sounds like an absolute cracker of a game, a real fist fight. Don't think any of you were reaching 16 at all.
Yeah, it was exactly the kind of game I wanted to start me off the day, because it was just, beating each other up, and that was great fun. Yeah. And as soon as we started losing models, there's no way we're getting to 16.
Oh, how excellent. Brilliant. Right, well let's close that one there, and then let's see where your win takes you. Excellent. So, the plan is working. You are one win in the Mutant Weekender Shield. Of course, you've come in as one of the higher place finishers within the bracket. So yeah, some might now top you as one of the favourites going into round two. Who do you face, and what have they brought?
So round 2 is preceded by lunch, and so we we were a little late coming back from lunch, so I ended up getting paired with the person I went to lunch with, which is a very good friend of mine, George Downing, or a very, very good friend of ours. So it was our punishment was to play each other because everyone else had been paired up, and we were both kind of in a similar bracket, like we'd both won our first games of the day. So
To put some context as well, I was at lunch with you, but had ran back to TO the event. Was waiting around what clock watching for you guys to make it back, but you made it back and it was okay because you were both on one win as well, so it wasn't like it was messing around with the pairings.
yes, so we've had our leisurely lunch, we strolled back in, we roll some dice, and I win priority.
Great, super.
And we draw Legacy Virus and Demons.
Oh, so demons isn't part of your roster, is it?
No.
But it is a down the middle. It is a fighty crisis, so probably not one that you're too bothered about.
Yeah, I think I went with my extracts because he had Gamma and Mayor Fisk.
2 games in a row where the player with priority's gone with their extracts.
Yeah.
It's not the MCP I'm familiar with.
No, it's partly because their secures were so similar. And actually, I don't like Demons, but I don't hate it. It's not a wide secure that I hate.
Yeah, your characters don't enjoy being incinerated, but they don't mind fighting down the middle. So, bit 6 of one, half a dozen of the
Yeah.
other.
And we go 19 because we have to.
Oh, of course. Yeah, both of them are 19.
And I know what George would have loved to go at. It would have been 15, but I'm forcing him high, which is what we like.
The man plays 15 for a living. That's all he
Yeah,
wants to play.
yeah. So I go with Amazing Spider-Man, Daredevil, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, and Wolverine.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So no Immortal Hulk,
No.
and the reason why I don't have Immortal Hulk is because he has Bill and Thor, both of who can throw size 4 characters.
Yeah, and if at 19 threat you've got a few more characters, there's just more for him to go bowling with.
Exactly, exactly. He, as expected, takes Thor, he takes Bill, he then takes Scourge, Iron Man, and Vision.
Okay, interesting. Vision's probably a nice one here with his beam
Yep,
attacks, and he's
yep,
also got a pretty cheap throw as well. So
yep,
yeah, I can see the logic there.
yep. So it's a nice little, yeah, there's a few characters in here, Vision in particular, that I don't really play against very often. In fact, the only person I know who plays Vision is George.
Yeah, same.
So I have priority. I go with ASM. I deal the middle virus and hop back. Nice simple play with ASM to start. Daredevil grabs the left one, and his Iron Man grabs the right. So within the first three activations, all three of the legacy viruses are picked up. I sit Luke kind of on the back objective. His Scourge walks up into the middle, and Iron Fist can do a 4 dice attack and hop up into the middle to sit on that middle point. Bill is also in the middle with him, so he's currently got 2 characters on the middle, and I only have one. And Wolverine, I kind of hover back a little bit. I want to save his power, and I don't really want him getting incinerated. It's that balance with demons.
And George looks like he's got a couple of energy attacks, which once Wolverine's only rolling 2 dice to defend, it's
Yeah.
pretty ropey.
Yeah. Annoyingly, I forget that Thor has like a range 5
Yeah, he
auto
does.
shock.
Yeah. Oh, and Wolverine hates that
And
too.
Wolverine, so if I should have probably just sat Wolverine right back, but I hover him so that he's in position to attack next turn, and Thor gets that shock on him, which is a real pain on Wolverine, who's all about his dice. So he doesn't actually take much damage, but yeah, he's shocked, and it's 3-all at the end of round 1. So I'm up on extracts, down on secures. And Bill is a great. In fact, Asgard are good on this on demons because they can remove the shot, the incinerate quite easily. They just pay the power at the start of an activation. They can remove it. So that's something that I'm aware of. Wolverine goes at the top of round 2, shocked Wolverine, and he dazes Scourge.
Pretty good considering he's shocked.
Yeah, I'm pretty impressed. However, I'm not entirely convinced that that's what I wanted to do. I kind of wanted to chip some damage away and then wait for Scourge to go and daze him. But
Right.
Wolverine just rolled too well.
And are you both 5 characters wide? So have you just given him
We're both
priority?
5 characters wide, so I give up priority. But I'm also kind of thinking I've got to take advantage of these incinerated characters and just try and take some
Yeah.
characters off the
Take
board.
his point scorers off the table for
And
sure.
especially Scourge because he's got that too dangerous to ignore thing.
Yes. He's also got a really decent builder, which, once you're incinerated could do some real hurt. So
Yeah.
I get the play.
Exactly. Thor charges in, but doesn't do a huge amount, and Iron Fist basically retreats. So I'm thinking that Iron Fist has been able to hop onto the middle, which in hindsight I regret because then he's incinerated, and I'm not even scoring the point. But he walks back onto the back point.
Holding a legacy virus.
No, he's not. My virus is on Daredevil and ASM,
Uh
and then Luke Heroes for Hire off. I think it's Wolverine, as Thor's punching Wolverine. And so I basically get my idea is get Luke Cage on the objective, and then I get to throw Thor off it. So Thor is slightly in no man's land here, which I like. And then Luke Cage gets dazed. Not by Thor, but in a subsequent go. I think it was Bill dazed him, which is I think is a little bit unlucky because Luke can be that really tanky person.
yeah.
I think my mistake was Luke was incinerated because he was the one that sat on the back objective.
Yeah, but you think because he's got Bill who's immune to incinerate, he can reliably put 2 characters on the middle. Only one of them gets incinerated, they then remove it. So
Exactly.
if you want to score that middle point, you do need to commit models to it. Which sadly, I mean, it's great. Obviously, it's great for him that you're incentivized to get even more characters incinerated.
Yeah. It means that ASM has to move onto the middle to stop him scoring it. And Daredevil kind of starts to threaten his back objective. So that's how the end of the round. I don't think I actually sit Daredevil on the back objective because I don't want him incinerated because he hates being incinerated. But it's just there so that he's in the mix for next turn. And so at the end of the round, it's 6-5 to me. And we've both had a character dazed. But I've given up priority.
You've got the points lead,
Yeah,
yeah, and then I imagine with the power Scourge has got now, and potentially the power that he's gained from that turn from dazing your character, from Luke Cage, he's probably set up for a pretty decent turn 3.
yeah. So Thor is the one that actually goes first in this one rather than Scourge. He charges in and hits Luke, and he gets his throws, and so he throws Luke into ASM, and ASM with 4 dice, re-rolling all, takes 5 damage
Oh god,
off 2 throws, which is just a little bit brutal.
that's enough. That's enough to generate tilt. That is because I don't think you should really be taking more than 2 damage from those 2 throws, but you could take none.
Yeah, Luke's got 3 damage So he's a size 2, so 3 damage coming in. Off 4 dice, you'd expect, with full rerolls, you'd expect to get 2 successes, at least. And to make matters worse, Luke KOs, because he's taken that chip damage, and then he's taken enough damage from the throws. So I'm thinking, oh man, Luke Cage, my tanky guy, meant to be able to just sit and hold that objective, is out the game. That's a scunner, and ASM is looking bad. Now I make a decision which we can talk about it, but there's a sweet area attack lined up. There's like Thor, Scourge, Bill, and I think Vision as well is in range. So Daredevil just can't help himself. And so I move with Daredevil. Daredevil's not got a huge amount of power at this stage because he's not been doing a huge amount. So I no matter the cost. So I think Daredevil takes a couple of damage to no matter the cost and do his area attack. And it's actually a sick area attack.
Yeah.
So he KOs Scourge
Amazing.
and he dazes Bill.
Oh, brilliant. And I imagine, well, you got 4 rerolls, right? Being in range of all those characters.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
huge.
It's like 10 dice area attack with 4 rerolls on one of them. And I think I go into Scourge first because I don't want him to be bodyguarding.
Of course. Yep.
I take him out without having to use the rerolls, and then I use the rerolls on Bill.
Brilliant. That's nice.
So Bill goes down, and then Wolverine dazes Thor. So that's 3 characters that I've managed to take out, which is great. So even though Wolverine has been shocked, he's still able to do the damage.
Putting out the hurt. Yeah, and even though you've lost Luke Cage, it sounds like you're actually probably up on the attrition.
Yeah. So that's the end of this. So then Daredevil is dazed by Iron Man. So Iron Man's sat out a bit wider because he went and picked up the legacy virus. And Daredevil gets dazed by Iron Man, and ASM gets dazed by Vision.
Right, because he's only got 1 health left after those 2 throws.
He's only got 1 health left. So and they're my 2 virus holders. But I do manage to keep hold of one of the viruses. I pick up Bill's with Iron Fist.
Right.
But at the end of that round, Luke Cage got KO'd, and Daredevil and ASM got dazed. And on his side, Scourge gets KO'd, and Bill and Thor have both been dazed. So actually, in terms of attrition, it's pretty even.
Yeah. Okay. But you've gone from a situation of having the advantage on the legacy virus to being now at a disadvantage.
And it's 9-all at the end of that. I was up 6-5 in the last round because I had the extra virus. He then picks up 2 viruses. And crucially, he has priority. So I think this game feels on a knife edge at this stage. 9-all, we both had quite a few character stays, but Thor wakes up. He's got a bunch of power, and his area attack is now dirt cheap, and he's in a decent position. So he double area attacks.
Oh gosh, this is the George special, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is because it shocks everyone as well. And
Yeah, he's got 8 power, double area attacks, which dazes Wolverine, which wasn't overly surprising. I think he only had like 1 health left after all was said and done. KO's ASM. ASM, man. He's so annoying.
I thought his nemesis was Emma Frost, but turns out doesn't matter who. Anyone who can generate a strong breeze seems to be able to knock him over.
Yeah. I mean, so I think it's a 7 dice area attack with Thor. I'm rolling 3 dice because I'm incinerated, because that happens in the power phase. But I have full rerolls and I have witty banter. I've got loads of power with ASM, and he's got 6 health. I'm thinking 2 7 dice attacks with the witty banter. He probably survives. No, he
No.
dies. He dies. I don't think it was even close either.
Yeah, no, I can see one of those attacks spiking, and just because you've only got 3 dice, with a crit, maximum you're getting is like four successes. Anything more than that is just outrageous. But he could realistically spike on just one of those attacks and do enough.
Yeah. And in fact, he doesn't just spike on one of those attacks. He also does 5 damage to Daredevil, who is not incinerated and counts blanks. So Daredevil survives on 1 health, but that's a pretty strong opener from Thor, because that's 2 of my characters. I mean, my big 5 threat character who's not really been able to do what he wants this game goes down, and Wolverine, okay, only had 1 health left, so I was expecting it, but he dies. However, Daredevil can retaliate because he does have his area attack online, and because of the way that the pushes and where Thor is not in range, so I have to move Daredevil first, and I decide to move him kind of to the back point because I'm thinking at this stage, Vision and Iron Man are the two characters holding objectives. And Thor is not on the point because he's double area attacked and he wasn't on the point to start with.
And he's not holding anything, so at this stage in the game, a bit irrelevant really. You might just power him up.
Exactly. So I area attack with Daredevil and it just totally fluffs. I think I did like 1 damage to Iron Man. It was like pathetic amounts of damage. And then I did some damage to Vision. I do fluff the attack, but it's not a horrendous fluff. Iron Man, who's holding 2 of the legacy viruses. So Vision was in the area but wasn't holding the legacy virus. Iron Man is holding 2 legacy viruses, so he's my priority. I failed to daze Iron Man, but then I do my Man Without Fear.
Nice, okay.
No, sorry, Devil of Hell's Kitchen is what it's called, to do my free attack, which dazes Iron Man. But in the process, Daredevil rolls a skull and dies.
Yep, and he had 1 health left. That was a risk.
It was a risk, but I felt I needed to do it because basically he could have then just walked Iron Man away if he'd wanted to, and there's not much I could have done about it. But I do get Iron Man, but I don't get Vision or Thor, which is a shame. But I mean, it was hard. It was a hard work from Daredevil. It felt hard work. Iron Fist then survives versus Bill, which gives him enough power to do his Iron Fist attack. And at this stage, the only person he can really reach with his Iron Fist attack is Thor. So I decide I want to stagger Thor. Well, actually, I decided I want to try and kill Thor. 8 dice attack, doing some chip damage around me as well, and a stagger to boot.
Yeah.
But it gets removed by the leadership. But I'm hoping, to be honest, I'm hoping to kill him because he's taken a little bit of damage already from the spender, or the Daredevil spender. Unfortunately, Thor survives, and then Vision patches him up.
Oh no, because you've just given him a ton of power with Daredevil.
So Vision, I think, literally walks up, patch up, walks back.
Yep, smart.
And so the round ends at 10 all. There are 2 viruses on the ground. I'm holding one of the viruses with Iron Fist, and he's got his back objective. But I've got left Iron Fist, Wolverine. That's it.
That's it, because you've lost Luke Cage, ASM, and Daredevil.
And he's got a healthy Vision, a dazed Iron Fist, a injured Bill, and an injured Thor, who's now fully healthy again because he's been patched up. So that big Iron Fist turn needed to go off into Thor to really make it even. And then Wolverine does do the business to Thor, though. He does KO Thor, even though he's been patched up, which was huge. But the patch up was still worth it because I had to double tap him and I couldn't take out Bill as well. And what I really wanted to do was kind of double tap and take out Bill. And then Vision walks up and beams Wolverine and Iron Fist, which is a nice play, actually. Does 4 damage onto Wolverine, though, which is so annoying. I think it's a 4 dice attack. Does 4 damage into Wolverine. It's brutal. Wolverine survives, Iron Fist survives, but then I forgot. Vision has a throw.
Yep, a dirt cheap throw. We said it at the start.
Dirt cheap throw. And so Vision throws Wolverine into Iron Fist. Wolverine is alive on 1, but Iron Fist goes down.
Yeah, it's like 2 power and it's size 3. It's so good.
Yeah. And I didn't realize, I think at the time, I didn't realize that he had a throw. So I was like, oh, I've got away with it. Wolverine's alive. I'm just going to stay alive. Iron Fist can maybe do something.
And then George revealed his trap
And
card.
then George reveals his trap card. And then, just to really like rub it in, he then Helios
Oh god.
Wolverine on 1 health.
I hadn't even clocked that was still in his
Yeah.
locker.
Yeah. So Wolverine goes down with his 1 health, gets Helios. And so I, at that stage, have Iron Fist left, who's dazed. And the game ends 12-10. And I think time is called.
Sure.
So it goes the 5 rounds, but
Yeah, that makes sense because you obviously had a leisurely lunch, didn't you? So
yeah, exactly. So it goes the 5 rounds. It's 12-10. It's a really bloody game, and I called this the game the tale of 2 areas because it was kind of the area attacks from Thor and the area attacks from Daredevil. And Daredevil, they both got 2 area attacks off, and Thor's ended up being the one that did the most damage.
and even yours, which did a lot of damage and took characters out, it only apart from it KO'd Scourge, brilliant, but powered up a bunch of characters that can do so much with that power. If I'm honest, listening to that, I feel like your biggest enemy there might have been demons. I feel like he was just far more set up to mitigate that incinerate. Have you thought much about the game since? I wonder if you'd had priority, taken 2 extracts, and then been happy at the end of turn 1 with just your back points to be 3 all, and have maybe a little bit more control and, easier to make decisions about pulling people off points and, making his first move far more difficult because no one's in range, for instance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my big there were kind of a couple of mistakes that I made in this game, big mistakes that I made in this game. The first was like you said, I think I should have been happy to just evens on the scores. Sit back, one of my characters gets incinerated. I don't want it to be Luke, and I don't want it to be one of my characters holding extracts. So either Iron Fist or Wolverine. I don't really mind either. Probably Iron Fist to be honest, because Wolverine does a lot of damage. And then just kind of ping shots into him, just try and do some chip damage, force him to come to me, and when he does come to me, I can then kill.
And you've got things like throws and pulls with Wolverine and Daredevil. You activate safely, you then wait for him to activate, and then you move that character that's just activated.
Yeah, and ASM actually is a very killy character in this list because he's got all his rerolls and he gets a 7 dice into potentially 8 dice. The other mistake I think I made was I didn't control priority well enough. I needed to start with priority, I think. And I think I gave up priority too easily with that Scourge days early on.
I think you gave up priority in a position where he could really take advantage of it because all your models were in the middle. All your models were in range. If you'd lost priority but you were on the periphery, that might have actually worked in your favor because his first activation doesn't do very much. Whereas actually you set him up so his first activation could do a ton, and that was hard.
Yeah, so it was a good lesson in kind of managing that wider attrition.
Yeah, 19 threat attrition is difficult
Yeah.
because there's more than one piece you need to be thinking about.
Yeah, so in the end, it was a 12-10 loss. Unfortunately, I'm 1-1. It probably means I'm not winning the Shield, but, I've still got another game.
Absolutely. Let's try and go positive. Let's see what the final round of the Mutant Weekender brings for you. So we come to the end of a 7-game journey of the Mutant Weekender, the third game of the Mutant Weekender Shield. Who you playing? What have they brought?
Yeah, so I'm feeling quite weary at this stage. It's been a long weekend, started on Friday night, and I'm quite pleased to see across the table from me Zahir. So there's another very good friend of mine, so we can have a nice chilled game to finish the day, which is really nice. But it's classic, we go to these events to play new people, and on day 2, I've played against 3 people from London, 2 of which are very close friends of mine that I play all the time.
Yeah, you're playing as sparring partners. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, Zahir's been to a couple of events, and I've played him at all of them.
Well, I think day 1 you had a gluttony of international opponents, so maybe
Yes.
you were getting your comeuppance day 2.
Or maybe it's suggesting that the international opponents were not in the Shield.
Yeah, they all qualified for the target
Or
bracket.
me and my mates are just rubbish at this game.
Yeah. I wonder if that's more likely.
So we roll priority, and I win priority. So I won 2 out of 3 today, which is nice. And sorry, I should say Zahir is playing with Midnight Suns. So I think we spoke about it a couple of episodes ago. He's playing with a very similar list to when he was on the podcast last.
Of course, but this is another potential Immortal Hulk off, your second of the day.
Indeed, indeed. And it's Research Station and Meteors that we draw. And Zahir opts for 17.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I'm umming and ahhing at this stage. I'm like, do I go with like Web Warriors and just kind of be a pain, slow them down and stuff, and just like jump around those meteors and pull people off
Yeah,
researchers?
flip them and
But then I'm like, you know what? No, Immortal Hulk. This is potentially his final outing for a
yeah,
while.
last game in a while. Big hurrah.
Let's get him on the table. So I go with at 17 threat, Daredevil, Elektra, Immortal Hulk, and Wong.
Oh, okay, so this is that nice 17 threat that we talked about on the previous episode 4, where you like 17 threats, but instead of Wolverine, you brought Elektra.
Yeah, so the reason is twofold. The first is Elektra's ninjas really help out on the researcher because you go and sit them on the researcher and they count for scoring it. And it basically essentially gives me 5 characters that can score the researcher, which is quite a big points buff. The other thing is that once Wolverine gets injured, he can no longer interact with the meteors. And so I thought Elektra would be a better character to play the Meteors game because she can jump around a bit, she can flip quite reliably, and so I decided to bring her out. So I thought Daredevil and Elektra, let's get the band together.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, thinking about this. Sounds good.
Zahir does not go with Immortal Hulk, which I expected he wouldn't
Ooh.
because I've played against him before. So he goes for Blade, of course,
Nice.
Iron Fist,
Great.
Black Cat. So I almost had a day without playing Black Cat, not quite.
But Black Cat, is she as oppressive on this one? Because I mean, she's a long mover, which is great for those meteors, but she can't be stealing and
Yeah,
taking that
yeah.
extract.
And I've got a Wong to help with the staggers. And then to round out Zahir's roster is Wong, and then his favorite, Ghost Rider.
Of course, yeah. This is his centerpiece, isn't it?
Yeah,
He loves his
he
Ghost
loves
Rider.
Ghost Rider, and Ghost Rider's a great character. I've really enjoyed playing against him when I've played against Zahir. So round one kicks off, and it's a fairly basic round one. Elektra moves to the right to take the right meteor. I think the ninjas walk up onto the researcher, as we discussed. Ghost Rider takes the left one, and then Daredevil steals it off him again, which was awesome.
Oh, brilliant.
Immortal Hulk walks into the middle and throws people off the middle. So I'm currently scoring the middle meteor and I'm on the researcher. And then Black Cat, as is her wont, staggers Immortal Hulk, gets the wild off. So she elusives into the middle. So it means I don't have the researcher, but I'm scoring all three of the meteors. So at the end of a basic round one, it's 3-0 to me because we're drawing the researcher and I've got the meteors. It's a good start.
Yeah, I think that's as good as it could have gone.
Yeah. Round two kicks off, and Iron Fist actually has quite a lot of his Iron Fist has quite a lot of power at this stage, so I'm quite worried about this. So I decide to go slightly risky, and I go with Daredevil. Iron Fist has got a couple of health left because Immortal Hulk's been able to throw stuff at him in the previous round, and so Daredevil manages to daze Iron Fist, which turns off that Iron Fist attack. The dice rewarded my boldness because maybe I'd have been better off going with Immortal Hulk first and just guaranteeing a go with him. But I wanted to save him for later so that he could hop around, throw people around, and flip meteors.
Absolutely. I think on researcher, that's definitely the right call.
Even if he gets activated, which wouldn't have been ideal, he's still on the researcher and he's still scoring me those points. And Zahir doesn't have the control to get him off it. His Black Cat goes and flips some of the points, so he's starting to try and turn it around. But then Wong is able to remove the stagger from Immortal Hulk, and Immortal Hulk has a big turn and dazes his Wong.
Oh,
Huge.
yeah.
But the big play of this turn for me was that Elektra managed to take out Blade, which is a pretty good effort given that Elektra's mystic attacks and Blade doesn't mind mystic, but she rolled well enough with the rerolls, with the pierce. She did the job on Blade, and so that was a great start. And even better, I'm able to retain priority because of the order of attacks. I've managed to, because I have one less character than him. So I dazed Iron Fist, but retained priority because the order of the dazings meant that he'd activated before they got dazed. And the round ends 4-2. I think we're again drawing the researcher, but Black Cat's been able to flip a bunch of the points that I've not been able to flip back. But I've still got a decent lead. I'm still 2 up. At the top of round 3, Daredevil's sitting on a healthy amount of power after his work in round 1. Does his big spender to try and KO Iron Fist, and I think Black Cat is also kicking around, and maybe Wong as well. So it's a decent area, but unfortunately the one character I wanted to KO, Iron Fist, survives. I don't know the dice math on this because he's got 3 defense and he's counting his blanks, but I thought Daredevil might have a good shot at him. I then make a big error, a really stupid error. I move Daredevil into next to the Immortal Hulk onto the meteors, and my thinking is he can then sacrifice onto Daredevil in order to stop Immortal Hulk getting activated by Iron Fist.
Great, yeah. And potentially a Ghost Rider move, which could potentially do a lot of hurt and get rid of a load of power from.
Yeah, exactly. However, I then spent a power to flip the point.
Oh no, I know where this is going.
I failed to flip the point, in fact. And then afterwards realized that was Daredevil's last power. It was one of
Yeah,
those moments where I'd planned his turn at the start of the turn, and then I just was
just
like,
just
what am I
just brain
doing?"
farted.
It was so thick because then, as you'd expect, Iron Fist does a big fisting into Immortal Hulk.
Yep, nothing you can do about it now.
Nothing I can do about it now. So Immortal Hulk is activated. He's still sat on the researcher, so that's good for me, but he is activated. Elektra then steps up and KOs Blade. So she's done really well on that right flank. She has vindicated my decision to bring her over Wolverine.
Good, and that flank is a one-on-one, so now it's fairly uncontested for her. She can flip it and then come back into fight.
Yeah, so then he's having to pull people across if he wants to get that back. And she does it with her big spender. Her big spender's awesome. And I had the ninjas close. I think I was able to do a mystic attack into him, place next to him, and then spender into him. So it was one of those activations which was exactly what I wanted from Elektra. And that was huge because there goes his leadership, there goes his bump, and I just take a model off the board. Ghost Rider then hell on wheels across and dazes Elektra, unfortunately. So her victory is short lived, but she's done enough of a job there. And Black Cat survives. Maybe it was Wong that attacked Black Cat in the end. Survives on one and is subsequently patched up. I think Black Cat had taken some damage from the area attack, and then Wong was trying to finish her off. Failed, which is not overly surprising, and then is patched up. So annoyingly, she's back to full health. And the round ends at 5-4 to me. So he's closing the gap. He's closing the gap. And Immortal Hulk has not had a go that turn. So Immortal Hulk starts round 4 and he goes. And he has the turn I needed. He dazes Ghost Rider and he KOs Iron Fist. So it's a massive start, taking out 2 of his characters. Yes, I've given up priority, but I'm thinking at this stage, we're 4 characters apiece. Now another character KO'd, and he's got his big 5-threat character dazed. So it's a great turn from Immortal Hulk. Immortal Hulk hardly moves this game. He basically stands still and swings, and it's great.
That's fine. Well, it's the researcher. You've got a central meteor there. Like, there's no reason for him to move. People need to
Yeah.
come to him.
I think Wong then goes for him and does some Wong things, which might have been an error because then Daredevil goes, spenders, and he KOs Wong, his Wong. Fails to daze Black Cat, who's just been annoyingly tanky, but she's pushed away. So Daredevil has a big turn there. Elektra then patches up an Immortal Hulk, and Wong does some healing to finish off the turn. Oh yes, that's right. So Elektra survives, patches up Immortal Hulk, and doesn't do much. Wong then goes, and I have a decision to make, and I decide to heal up Elektra, who's taken a decent chunk of damage, Daredevil, who's taken a decent chunk of damage, and then my Wong dazes because he's bleeding. So he's very much the faithful servant, sacrifices
Yeah.
himself to
Well played, Wong. Well played.
yeah, it was great. And because of where Black Cat was, because the order of events, Black Cat was out in no man's land. Wong and Iron Fist have been KO'd, and Ghost Rider have been dazed. So I'm getting a big point swing there. I'm getting all the points now, 10-4. So that's how round 4 ends at 10-4 up. So it's a really good turn, and it was set off by that Immortal Hulk kicking off. However, I have given him priority at the top of round 5, and he needs a big turn.
He does. Yeah. I don't think you mind at that stage, given the work that you've done and the points lead that you've got.
Worth it. Goes and tries to take out Daredevil and Elektra and fails on both. So Wong's healing has saved them.
Well, rest in peace, Wong. You've done your work.
Yeah, I think Here's a Here might have been better off like trying to double tap one of them. I think he tries I think he tries to beam twice, or he might have beamed once and then tried to finish one of them off. But that's big because then Elektra, basically where Elektra is on the table, can take out Black Cat or daze Black Cat, which effectively finishes the game. So his Ghost Rider, he's sat somewhere, he's flipped some points, but I then have all the time in the world with all my other characters to go and flip points. So I again score 5, and the round 5 ends at 15-4.
Right. Okay. And then time called,
Yeah.
or do you play it out?
Yeah, time gets called. It's 15-4 at the end of round 4, and I think at that stage, if we'd gone another round, it probably would have ended 24. because he had like 2 characters left and I had all my characters still alive.
And you had so much control over when you then
Yeah,
went for them
yeah.
as well. So
So it ended up being a pretty brutal game.
yeah, that sounds pretty grim end for Zahir for a weekend, which would have been one of his first
Yeah,
tournaments as well.
yeah.
So know, well done.
I feel like it was a tight game going into the top of round 4, but unlike my last game against George, I was able to control priority well for this game, which meant that I was able to go when I wanted to go, and actually the fact that I had a character down, but I actually still had 5 characters on the table because of the ninjas, made a massive difference because it meant that I could KO or daze or KO a character without giving up priority, which was massive.
Yeah, you're exactly right there. You've got the same amount of characters for scoring, but you have that control over priority. You can also roll more dice sooner because obviously Electra and the Grunts go together. Yeah, well played. Well played. What good way to end the Mutant Weekend of Shield.
It was a very nice end, and I feel very pleased that Electra came. We talked about it a couple of episodes ago with her versus Ancient One as that 4 threat spot, and she really performed. I think this weekend generally, I think she came quite a few times, and I think just that combination of bringing some grunts and actually her damage output is pretty good, especially in this list where she gets the rerolls with this leadership. So I'm pleased she got that final outing over Wolverine. I think that was the right call.
I completely agree as well, especially after the audition, especially after, the effort that she'd put in. It was nice for her to get that final game. Should we wrap that one up there and then
Yes,
maybe come back and reflect on the tournament as a whole, on the roster and how it performed?
sounds like a plan.
Don't mind being wrong, as long as I can correct my mistakes.
Congratulations, Archie, for getting to the end of what I hope was an enjoyable weekend. Perhaps not as successful as what you'd been preparing for, but fun nonetheless. You went 2-1 in the Mutant Weekender Shield. Overall, how well did you feel the Defenders Webs combo, and particularly Immortal Hulk, got on this weekend?
So I had a great weekend. I really enjoyed the event. It's my first 2-day MCP event, and it was really fun to play so many games. I mean, I must have played in the space of 4 days about 15 games, which is awesome. I have to admit, though, by the end of the weekend, I was a little fed up of Immortal Hulk.
Oh no! And and you put so much care and effort into the model. You were so excited to put the piece down. I think as well for the listeners to provide a bit of context, we played a teams event back in October, and you played Immortal Hulk for the first time because the Hulk was already taken, and you borrowed the model from someone. And after that, you thought, brilliant, this guy was so much fun. I'm going to buy him. I'm going to paint him up, and I'm going to play with him. So what went wrong?
So to be honest, that I was most sold at that team event on the sculpt because the sculpt of Immortal Hulk is amazing, and I wanted to build this team around him with Daredevil-led defenders, especially as I was really excited about that upgrade. I think the issue I have with Immortal Hulk is for a 7 threat model, he very much lives and dies by his dice. So he can have these unbelievable turns where he's rolling 7 dice, he's getting all his wilds, he's throwing people around, but if he doesn't, then he's a waste of space.
Yeah, absolutely.
And his mechanic where he comes back to life is great, but actually I found most of the time people ignore him because they don't want to power him up and they just kill everyone else around him. And so actually that mechanic, which is probably what makes him a 7 threat over a 6 threat Hulk, doesn't actually come into effect so often because most people will have a plan for either doing that 15 damage and not letting him come back, or they just ignore him, kill everything else.
There are lots of tools in the game right now to play around that. I mean, he's even a good counter to himself, right? With his spender not generating power, but then, the likes of, I mean, Ghost Rider, as we've mentioned, is a threat to him with his, is it the penance stare or something?
Yeah, penance stare.
Which not only it reduces the power and doesn't give you it, and then you have various superpowers and other attacks which stop you from generating power and stuff. So yeah, I think people can play around it. I also think that almost on his card as well, there's a little bit of a conflict between you wanting him to die with as much power as possible, so he comes back as healthy as possible, but also you wanting to spend that power for him to be effective,
Yeah,
for him to do what he needs to do,
yeah,
for him to have a reliable turn where he say, guarantees to throw twice, well, he already has to spend, what, 7 power just to be able to to
Eight,
guarantee throwing twice.
8 power,
8 power to
which is
do that.
nuts.
So, which is nuts. And yes, he can get 3 throws off a turn, but he's relying on either having enough power to do is spend it twice, but then you won't be able to throw, or you're relying on that wild on that builder, which on is it 7, 8 dice? 7 dice?
7 dice.
7 dice. It's not guaranteed to have it come up every time. So yeah, I can really see the challenge with him there, and maybe he'll have games where he's absolutely a 7 threat, maybe even an 8, and he'll have games where he feels like glorified 5.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is his catch-up mechanic is weird. So one of the great things that we love about MCP is when you daze, you get better because you suddenly come back with all this power. However, with Immortal Hulk, that doesn't happen because he dazes, he loses all his power to gain his health back, and so he comes back with just 3 power, and that feels bad.
Yeah, that does feel bad. But yeah, like you say, most characters come back and they have an amazing turn. He comes back and he might not even be fully healthy either because he can only ever have 10 power and he's got 15 health. So yeah, he might have a bit less of a powerful turn when he comes back.
Yeah, so that was a shame, but I think he's a fun character to play with. And I think the problem with this tournament for him was it was a highly competitive tournament, especially that day one. Everyone was bringing all their tools out of the toolbox, and he's just a victim to so much of what is good at the moment. I've mentioned Bill and Black Cat a lot this weekend. Those two are perfect counters for Immortal Hulk, and you see them in most competitive rosters.
Yeah, because they're not just good against the Mortal Hulk. They're good, simpliciter. They're good into all sorts. They're just especially good into the tool that you wanted to bring. That's rough. Looking at the other 9 characters and the cards and the tactics cards that you brought, did anything else disappoint you, or likewise, did anything else really shine and make you think, oh yeah, fancy a bit of that?
So there were a couple of characters which I was a little disappointed in. Wolverine, I think, is quite similar to Immortal Hulk in that he lives and dies by his dice. He can have these amazing turns where he just kills everything, or he can have these turns where he doesn't roll any wilds and he just does nothing.
Sounds quite thematic to me. Either you throw him into a bunch of bodies and he absolutely tears them all to shreds, or you get into his head and he crumbles.
Yeah, playing him alongside Immortal Hulk, that core that I spoke of, Wolverine, Immortal Hulk, and Daredevil, has such a high ceiling, but it's also got a really low floor.
Absolutely. The variance, because they're relying on dice, is so broad, yeah, you can get stung by it.
Yeah, so I think if I were to look at redeveloping my Defenders roster, I'd probably try and go a bit wider attrition
Okay.
because I actually think a lot of the characters in Defenders have some really nice tech in that they can do a decent amount of control, and you have a lot of these 3 threat characters that can do a damage above their station. And if you add in the rerolls, that can be even more effective. Someone like Iron Fist.
Yeah, and I wonder as well, by going wider attrition, you are maximizing the amount of dice you get to reroll. Because, on a game where you're 3 wide with Immortal Hulk, Daredevil, and Wolverine, say, you've got 3 activations that you can reroll dice, which can be great, right? Because you're close to them, they have big attacks, so they can do lots of damage. But actually, your dice manipulation, you're not leaning into it a ton, and you're not making your attacks as reliable as you hope they are. Whereas if you've suddenly got 5 activations, that's potentially 5 attacks that you can begin to dice manipulate just by virtue of having more models and rolling more dice. Likewise, you can go wider and bring in out of activation attacks as well, and suddenly that multiplies. And the amount of successes you're rolling as a proportion of your total dice is much higher because you're re-rolling more of them.
Yeah, I completely agree. And actually, if you look, there's a lot of teams played right now that are attrition teams, but they're long range attrition teams. X Force is the prime example where you have a lot of characters that sit back and shoot, and then you have like the Wolverines that walk in a little bit more and kill. But this Defenders roster, I think, is a close up brawly team because actually a lot of your low threat characters have quite good defense tech. Iron Fist with his blanks, Luke Cage with his damage reduction, Daredevil with his blanks, Ancient One with her blanks and all her defensive tech. There's a lot of that going around that means you are not so reliant on dice. I think when you roll a 7 dice attack with Immortal Hulk and it doesn't come off, feels really bad. If you roll a 5 dice attack with Daredevil and it doesn't come off, you're like, well, the next one might come off.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and it might feel counterintuitive playing like that when you want to be within range two, but actually, if you're going one on one, you can still achieve that within range two.
Exactly. I'd have to change the crises. They would be useless. Gamma would be useless for this like
Yeah,
wider attrition. But yeah, I think I will probably come back to Defenders at some point. There's a lot of new releases coming out, which I'm quite excited about. Um, but I think Immortal Hulk might be the character that gets left behind going forward, which is a real shame because I was really excited by him.
well, it wasn't all bad for Immortal Hulk, was it? Because as well as this being a competitive event with lots going on, we were also trying to champion the hobby. So we had awards for best table, as well as best theme on a roster with some people had written stories of why their team were fighting together. But we also had best painted, and quite pleased to say you came third and came away with a prize.
Yeah, I was really pleased. So for context, like I said, Immortal Hulk was not all about the game; it was about the model, and so I made this display board for him, like an individual's display board with a background. Painted that up, painted him up quite meticulously.
It looks so good as well, and the way in which the model interacted with the display board, it was seamless. It was straight off the page of a comic book, particularly with your style as well. If I must say so myself, it was excellent.
Well, thank you, thank you. So yeah, I was delighted to come away with third place. So you can see pictures of that on my Instagram. It's also going to be the cover art of these episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, hopefully, please do check that out. And check out Archie's Instagram for more pictures of the wider roster as well, because you do your MCP characters in a particular comic book theme with black lining, and it is so incredibly effective.
Yeah, thank you. And I was really pleased to get a prize. Like the painting prize actually was the one I cared about more. I'd put so much work into this Immortal Hulk, and I really love my style of MCP models, so I was delighted to get a painting prize in such a big event with there was so many amazing painted pieces, and there were some fantastic display boards. The person that won made this circus themed Dormammu, the Circus of
Yeah.
Dormammu, which was just brilliant.
Steve from Belgium, it was stunning, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Every character was made to fit the theme, converted up with extra pieces, and all painted in this theme of this like dark circus. It with Dormammu as the circus master at the center of it all, and it sort of ran away as well, didn't it? With a lot of those hobby prizes.
oh yeah, I mean it was undoubtedly that, so I'm delighted to be in such esteemed company to get for my model to get a prize.
Definitely. And shout out to AJ too, who you in the group of on day one. He finished second, and he similarly has a sort of comic book style theme, didn't he, with his Criminals Brotherhood roster, which looks really really cool. Some alternative prints there. Hulk dressed in his pinstripe suit and his Tommy gun, and his conversion on Black Cat, like dancing through the wires, the lasers is so cool. So yeah, congrats to AJ as well.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that's not the Immortal Hulk, the Hulk
Yeah,
gangster in the last episode, but
looks
yeah,
so
it
good.
was
So
it was
your group
sick.
then, quite a good looking group. Having you and AJ in it. So yeah,
Yeah, we did all right.
hobby wise,
We did all
excellent.
right.
So
We did all right. So, now that we've talked about me enough, I wanted to just turn it round to finish and interview you as the TO. So, we talked a lot about this event. This was kind of your brainchild. You're very excited to run it. How do you think it went from a TO's perspective?
so it was like a 2.5 day event, and by the end of it, I was absolutely exhausted. Particularly with drinks on the Friday and a few games, and then drinks on the Saturday, and then a quiz and more. So yeah, I was absolutely exhausted. It's my first proper big MCP event I run, and it was tiring, but I had so much fun. I think before I start, big shout out to Joe Hainstock who won the whole event. It was a final in the top bracket in the Mutant Weekender Cup between him and Pat Dunford. So two titans of the game, and it was Hellfire versus Web Warriors, and Joe came out on top. So big congrats to him.
That's Joe Manji on
Yes, on Longshank. Yeah, so people will be seeing him regularly on at top tables, but he also was in the group of death on day one as well, with lots of really high ranking players. So
yeah, yeah.
came out of that as top dog, and he ended up finishing off the event as top dog. So big congrats to him.
Took that
Yeah,
momentum forward on today too.
that was really, really good. The event as a whole, sort of the group stage into the brackets, I think we've had a ton of feedback about what people thought of that. I thought generally that worked really well. Going into the brackets on day two was really positive. I think people loved everyone having something to play for. We gave out first, second, and third prizes for each of the three brackets, plus then prizes for the wooden spoon in each of the brackets. So, four people from each bracket walking away with something meant that everyone had something to play for, which was something I really wanted to achieve and felt like we did that. So that was great. And honestly, that wouldn't have been possible either without the support that Norbert and Jamie put in when it came to prize support. So for those who didn't know, Norbert essentially used his network and his skills and reached out to so many vendors and supporters and tradespeople within the hobby, and they provided so much that we were then able to give away. So there was some really cracking prize on offer, and that's something I really like to do in all my events, is make sure that there are some really decent prizes for people to win, and that anyone has a chance of winning them as well. So that was great. Bits that I might change: the group stage. So I'm a big football fan. I love the idea of doing like a World Cup style, group stage draw. Everyone's really excited. The groups of death, and or people planning routes to the final and stuff, and people sort of trying to second guess what people in their group might bring. That all happened, and that was all fun. But to have a group stage, I think you need to almost do the group stage needs to be at a round robin level, so everyone plays everyone, or you have larger groups and just do Swiss within the group. We sort of went somewhere in between that because we had 48 players rather than we'd initially allocated. We had 40 players. Even that wouldn't have worked. Eight groups of five, but we went up to 48 once tickets sold out. And so we had groups of six. We thought, oh, brilliant! Everyone will play everyone but one person. But the only way for you to do that is by almost predetermining fixtures in advance, because the way Swiss works is that obviously you will play each players based on level of wins, and what happened was, come round four, we had a lot of players who had the remaining two opponents left at the same, meaning only one of them could be satisfied, and someone then had to play someone they'd already played. The way we dealt with that, and I think it actually happened in four out of the eight groups, which is, I was really disappointed for that, and I know that it's some of the feedback we've received that it was a shame that people played the same opponents that they'd already played in round four, that they'd already played in round one or round two, or in some cases round three and four was the same. We try to always make sure that people qualifying for the top brackets were always playing someone new. They weren't just playing someone that they'd already beaten, so that they were going into those top brackets with a much more reflective record of their games. But it did mean that, yes, some of those players who were qualifying for the Shield or below were facing, some of the same opponents again.
Yeah, and I think that we saw in last episode that I played, I'd lost 2 out of my 3 games, and then I played the guy who'd gone 3-0. So even when you're not playing repeat games, the benefit of the Swiss is that when you lose, you're meant to have easier games, and that's not always true. So even when you weren't playing the same person, you're playing someone that is at like a much higher or doing much better than you in the event, which feels a bit unfair.
Absolutely, and because everyone isn't playing everyone, because we're not doing
Mhm.
5 fixtures on day 1, there is a chance that some people have easier routes and some people have harder routes because they just miss that one player that might trip them up, or they missed the one player that they might have had a good
Yeah.
chance of beating. And that as a TO who likes running events and wanted everyone to have a great time, that didn't sit right with me. So I think going forward, if we did the Mutant Weekender again, absolutely keep the brackets for day 2.
Yeah.
It's something I stole from another event from MESBG. That's excellent. But day 1, I think, will just be pure Swiss. It'll just be everyone playing Swiss, and then the top 8 will go into that top bracket. The next 16 will go into the second bracket, and the remaining 24 will go into
Yeah.
the bottom bracket, just so you have fairer rankings and we can avoid repeat fixtures on day 1.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think as a player, coming back after what was for me a disappointing day 1 and having something to play for on day 2 makes a massive difference kind of psychologically. So I really like that day 2 brackets. But yeah, I think day 1, just do full Swiss and you're good to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It probably is less of a headache for you as a TO as well, because it sounds
Definitely.
like you had to do a lot of admin to get this all to work.
There was so much admin for the 8 groups as well, because on Longshanks, that was 8 separate events. So I was constantly in and out of different tabs. Some people's games would go on, and I would, I'd go on, try and speed them up by being the one that put the score into the system, and also trying to manage in the earlier rounds to not have repeat games and to avoid repeat tables as much as possible. To do that across 8 events was really, really difficult. And in some cases, I'd got myself into some, mathematical circuits and stuff. So I tripped myself up there, set myself up for failure a little bit, but it was good fun. The other thing I really loved about this event is that there was so much going on around the event. So the Friday night was lots of fun. It was so nice, especially because we had lots of players traveling in. It was so nice to meet a lot of them on the Friday. I've managed to get a couple of games in on the Friday. I played one of the Belgians, and that was great fun. And then on the Saturday night, the quiz, Jamie brought in and someone in his network too who does pub quizzes a lot, and they did this Marvel versus DC quiz, and that just kept everyone there, kept that whole sort of big event vibe going, and that was really great fun.
Yeah, it was a brilliant event. It was a brilliant full weekend event. I think it was very well run. Well done, Curtis. You should be very proud of yourself. The first 2-day London event by you as a new MCPTO. So that's pretty awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you, and big thanks as well to Norbert and Jamie, who without wouldn't have been able to put it on. So thanks for making my dreams come true.
Absolutely. Great. Well, I think we'll wrap up there. So before I do anything, I'm going to shout out our YouTube channel, which is
Of course.
called Cable's Conquests. It's been set up by Louis, our awesome audio editor and now video editor. So check out, we're uploading our episodes kind of retrospectively on there with some cool animations.
They're great fun, aren't they? I've watched a few back while I've been painting up some models, and to see some of the graphics that he does to bring the models in, he's done a cracking job, and it deserves people to go in and watch it.
Yeah.
Obviously,
It's great. And you can also see photos of our models on that. He's put the graphics in of our models, so that's great. And you can also see photos of our models on our socials. So, Curtis, where can people find you?
so you can see pictures of my painting on my Instagram. It's Simple Edge Highlights, and yeah, I post semi regularly with any of my latest models. What about yourself?
So you can find me on Instagram at Smeagol's Corner. So you'll see some photos of my Immortal Hulk up there if you want to take a look. So yeah, check it out. And I think we'll wrap up there. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening. And until next time, keep up the conquest.
The name's Cable. Remember it.